When have you seen the real world hit a spoiled brat? Story 1. When the high school principal's daughter, who previously got away with all kinds of garbage behavior, vandalism, drinking, bullying, and she got caught vandalizing a lecture hall in university, she was unceremoniously dumped and banned. Her parents whined for months on Facebook about their poor baby's unfair treatment and the fact that her applications to other universities were being denied. Story 2. Spending $50 on food a day is not normal. A college girl got cut off from her parents, drinking and not going to class, and had to get a job. She put on Facebook how she's going to go hungry and needs money. People offered her food and to make a dinner. However, she said, "That's okay, I just need about $40 to get through the day. I don't like to go grocery shopping." Edit. If you're wondering how she went through that much a day, she always ate out at a restaurant and had Starbucks twice a day. Add in snacks and alcohol, and there's $40 in one day. Story 3. Sorry about the length. I was a school bus driver in the 70s. During the height of court-ordered busing, I ferried poor kids to the rich side of town and then rich kids the other way. Lots of entitled brats, but one stands out. Super entitled kid, constantly defying the rules. Eventually, I caught him with too many witnesses attempting to set a bus seat on fire with his lighter. School officials were called. After the hearing with officials and the rich dad, they decided the kid will be banned from all buses for the rest of the semester. The dad offers to pay for the damages and quietly accepts the punishment. Then comes the surprise. Next morning, when I arrive at 6 a.m. to clean my bus, a regular task every morning, the rich kid and his dad were standing there. The dad introduces me to my new personal bus cleaner for the rest of the year. He brings the kid every morning and forces him to wash and clean the floors on my bus before taking him onto his school. By the end of the year, entitled kid is actually working hard and being friendly. We're getting along pretty well, and I help him out sometimes so he can get on to school. Kid turns out okay when all is over. Good move by his dad. Story 4. TLDR, Professor Fail's spoiled son. Back in engineering school, one of my classmates was the son of one of our professors. Now this professor was a really nice dude. He paid attention to his students, his classes were fun, and he rarely failed anyone. His son, on the other hand, was a total asshat, rude and nasty, and would always brag about how his dad was a highly senior professor with tenure. "You know who my dad is, right?" was literally his entire catchphrase. He wasn't even a good student. We ranked GPAs out of 10 and he was a 4. This professor actually taught a very specialized course, so we only had about 2 courses from him in our entire time at the school. This course in our 5th semester was a bit complicated. If you didn't do regular study, it was easy to fail, but if you practiced the stuff, passing it was a breeze. So finals came around and Asshat is out there bragging that he didn't need to study because his dad will pass him anyway. He took this confidence all the way to the exam hall, and then the results were out. He had scored 7 out of 100. We know because the professor called us all into the classroom and displayed his answer sheet on the projector. According to him, he was the 3rd student who had failed in his 20-year teaching career, and he couldn't be more disappointed that it was his own son. The amount of verbal ass-whooping Asshat received was enough to have him quivering like a wet cat in front of everyone. The next time he pulled the "Do you know my dad" card, the standard answer he received was "The one who failed you?" He stopped pretty soon after that. He retook the exam the following year, failed again, and had to drop out. Wherever he is today, I hope he learned his lesson. Story 5. A kid in college was a roommate of a friend of mine. He was always bratty and spoiled, but hung out with us as if he were a good friend and we let him chill with us because sometimes he wasn't that bad. Then one day, we heard him arguing with his mom on the phone that he needed more money. From the ensuing argument, we learned that he had, in less than 1 year, burned through 30 grand that his parents gave him for food and discretionary spending. Mind you, he was not paying for tuition or lodging or his car with his money. It was basically just food money, as all those other things were also already covered by his parents. He was calling his mother some really nasty things and hung up on her. Then his father called and they got into an argument, cussing each other out. At the end of that call, he threw his iPhone at the wall and shattered it. This was the original iPhone. Turns out, they cut him off and basically he had to drop out of his school and drive back home out of state because he couldn't afford to do anything anymore. And of course, he was just too good to work a pleb's job. He added me on Facebook about a year later and was a late-blooming 9/11 truther. Obama was president by this time, and the only thing I ever said to him on Facebook was a simple reply, correcting one fact he was wrong about in his 9/11 conspiracy theory. He then posted like 4 replies in quick succession, telling me to open my eyes, then blocked me. 6. Simple simple and pure example for my part. There was only one coffee shop on my campus operating out of the library building, and it was always crowded. You pretty quickly learned that if you wanted coffee before class, you got there 20 minutes early, grabbed the newspaper, I'm old, sue me, and took your time. It was always funny watching the incoming freshman crowd lining up 5 minutes before their 8 a.m. and slowly filter out in despair as they realized there was absolutely no way they were reaching that sweet Sumatra nirvana in time. Cue this little freshman girl, dressed up in the classic campus t-shirt, jean shorts, blonde ponytail, coming out of the ball cap starter pack, walking up, assessing the line stretching out the door, and boldly deciding to just sorta skip it. Now, the baristas were usually pretty cool with people skipping for simple things, dropping down a quarter for some scantrons or a buck for a cookie. Anything that didn't require interaction. Not this girl. She caught the barista's attention while the previous customer was still paying and went, "Hi, yeah, can I get a latte, please?" Like really quickly. The line starts back there, replied the now slightly confused girl behind the counter. "But I have class," whined the freshman. There was an awkward pause before the barista responded, "You're on a college campus. Are you freaking serious? Why do you think all these people are here? Back of the line." "Oh," was the only thing the freshman girl thought to say. As she turned to look at a line full of people staring daggers back at her, she looked not upset or embarrassed, but sort of enraptured by this newfound understanding she's just been imparted. It's like for the first time in her entire life, she realized that other people were in her way for reasons. It was actually kind of beautiful to watch, like a baby deer learning to walk for the first time. Better late than never. Story 7. My friend had this entitled younger brother who acts like the world revolves around him. While his dad is stern with him, his mom babies his behavior, and he can get away scot-free with almost anything. He gets angry very easily, even at the slightest things. I was over at my friend's house, and while we were downstairs, we heard a loud crash from his brother's room. It turns out he was playing Fortnite on the TV and threw the controller into the glass table, which shattered. My friend called me later in the day over Discord and told me how his dad came back and grounded his brother for a month, and he wasn't allowed to play video games or go over to a friend's house. He had to pay for a new table with his allowance and had to do chores. He got what he deserved. Story 8. I worked with a girl who was completely entitled to everything. She was a pretty blonde girl who was reaching her 40s and not so pretty anymore. She was impossible to be around and talk to. She was always right and no clue how the real world worked and always made excuses. I treated her like anyone else I worked with. I would not do her work for her. She went to our boss weekly because I was treating her unfairly, because I refused to do her work after I got mine done, while she painted her nails and made personal phone calls. She was furious when I was promoted over her. Then we hit the recession of 2008 and I was laid off. She got my job and quit within 3 weeks because she could not handle the pressure. I wonder where she is now and if she's going through the bar circuit trying to find some loser to pay her rent for the month. She bragged about doing this and was pissed when a month came by and she had to pay her own rent. Story 9. We hosted an exchange student when I was 9. Her name was Yuki and she was so spoiled. She shared my room and she threw her stuff all over the place. In Japan, she had people, dare I say servants, pick up everything for her. At one point, she had gotten into my makeup. I was 9, so I didn't wear it often, but it was expensive and I wanted to save it. And she just used it without my consent. I was pissed. I demanded that she clean up her stuff. I handed her a broom and she didn't know how to sweep. She had never swept in her life, so she had a meltdown when she was 17 and wrote an angry letter on her laptop that my parents found when I was at school. I don't know what the letter was, but I know it was bad. She got transferred to another host family. Honestly, what kind of 17-year-old steals a 9-year-old's makeup? It's just messed up. Story 10. A student at the school I teach was horribly entitled. She was constantly mean and rude to the teachers, refused to do any work if she didn't want to. She demanded teachers accept late work or improperly done work because she didn't listen. She would always leave the class on her own whims, came in late because she was out shopping with outside food, etc., etc., etc. The calls to her parents did no good because they believed she could do no wrong. She actually got in trouble for having sex with a bunch of athletes and her parents were called in. They, of course, refused to believe that their perfect daughter would do something like that. Then the admin showed her and her parents the security tapes of like 10 athletes running the train on her. It didn't end well. It obviously got out, it's how I found out, and she was out of school for like 2 weeks. When she came back, she completely changed her social circles and started doing makeup and costuming for the drama department, where she was able to return to some level of normalcy. Apparently became much nicer too. Wow, you actually got to the end of the video. I'm surprised. If you enjoyed yourself while you were here, subscribe to the channel so I can continue making more videos like this one.